We're 3 months away from the opening night of the NBA season, but that's not too early to give our contender tiers. What are the 10 best teams going into next season? We're also going to talk about stylistic changes that are needed by key players like Ja Morant, Giannis. Do they have to change their games at all? And then at the end, we all enjoyed Summer League. Some of these bottom dwellers are going to become League Pass darlings next year. We're going to give you our list for who we're excited for. All that and more on today's All NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Jason Timpf, host of Hoops Tonight over at The Volume. JT, how you doing?
It's good to see you, Adam. It's been a while. I will say I was complaining to Jackson, producer of Hoops Tonight, when we were in Vegas. I was like, we just had this crazy playoff run. Most I've ever worked in my time in this business.
Are you recovered?
And I'm doing good. I'm back on my feet. I can't complain. But it's funny because I kind of hate how excited I already am for next season. Like, yeah, I wish I could just kind of like disconnect for a little bit. And we're certainly going to try here over the next couple of months. But like, I just can't wait to see LeBron in a New Jersey. I can't wait to see all these League Pass teams we're about to talk about and different, big free agent moves like Giannis and Jaylen Brown in actual basketball practice. So like, I hate how excited I am for next season already.
It is funny, man. That makes one of us because I am very excited for next season. This is the penultimate episode of the show. There's one more tomorrow with Mark Stein. Maybe we'll get some LeBron news. But I'm very excited to have a couple months away from basketball before we refresh. But like you said, man, it is fun to step back and try to make predictions now because we'll probably do this same episode 3 months from now, right before the season begins. And my hunch is it'll be fun to compare the list and how things have changed just with momentum going into the season. So without further ado, because I think the show will actually be a full show just with the topics we have, let's talk about contender rankings. And what I like is I made a list. We said we were going to do the top 10 because I just don't think going beyond that, it isn't worth it. I made a list, but I want to go off of yours, and I'll just give you, I'll just tell you where they fit in mine. And my hunch is, in most years, top 3, 4, same teams, next tier, same teams. I kind of have a feeling this one will be all over the board. And I think that's the design of the league, that we can look at 10 teams, and you could have them flipped in almost any order. So that's how I feel, but get us started. Who do you think should be the favorites at this very moment? We don't even know where LeBron's going, but at this very moment, who should be the favorite going into next year?
This was a surprisingly tough list to put together when I started to look at it because it's not so much the top, and I'm sure we'll get into that in just a second, but everything off of the top for me is kind of in flux in a variety of different ways. I should also clarify, too, that I am moving forward in this list, not counting like theoreticals. So like, for instance, LeBron, I just still don't know where he's going to sign. And I have a spot on my list where I kind of see the team who gets LeBron landing, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay. And then the other one is this Toronto thing with Kawhi, where like, I think if Toronto gets Kawhi, they're profoundly interesting as a contender. I just think there's like a legitimate, like serious chance that he's not a Raptor next year.
Really?
Or is a Raptor, but is suspended or some other kind of janky thing. Yeah. What's your take on that? Do you think it's just going to go through?
I think it's going to go through. I think whatever penalty there will not really affect the basketball. Like, I would be shocked if it was a 60-game suspension or something like that. And even if it was, the regular season is what it is. I almost don't care about the regular season anymore. You have to make the playoffs, and you have to be somewhere in there. I think the Raptors will be in that mix, and I'm counting on Kawhi to be in Toronto and available for the playoffs. And so that's why the LeBron one I understand. The Kawhi one, I just went full Toronto's has him and ready for a playoff run.
Okay. That is interesting. In that specific case, I'd probably tweak my list slightly, but we'll get to there when I get there.
Okay. First, they're not number one.
Yeah, they're not number one. Okay. So to me, I still have the exact same top tier that I had before the offseason, more or less most of last season. It's San Antonio and OKC. I just really quickly, is that like your top two teams?
So I'm a sap. And I still keep the like reigning champs. I just always give them the reigning champs bump, especially with how well the Knicks played. But I want to go one by one, and I will say that my number one is San Antonio. So it is important to me the order of this, because while I think you could say San Antonio, OKC, 7-game series, both teams are going to be good next year. I have San Antonio above them because I think the growth that they made over the course of the playoff run, over the course of the season, but then in the playoff run, means they are starting with this momentum into next season. And I expect Dylan Harper to take a big step. So for me, San Antonio is my favorite going into the year to win it.
Yeah, so I have San Antonio number one as well. It's the identical reason. Like, I actually do believe that if even just AJ Mitchell was fully healthy, but certainly if both AJ Mitchell and J-Dub were fully healthy, they would have beat the Spurs last year. It would have been ugly. It would have probably been like a 6 or 7 game slugfest, but I think they would have got the job done if they had their ball handlers. I think it was just as much about that as anything else. That said, moving forward, I would have had OKC last year just barely above San Antonio when fully healthy. Then from there, it's just a simple question of internal improvement, right? Like,
Right. Yep.
Victor Wembanyama is going to have a dramatic year-over-year improvement. You're going to see a dramatic year-over-year improvement from Dylan Harper. You're going to see a dramatic year-over-year improvement from Steph Castle. Carter Bryant was showing some more offensive chops in Summer League. I look at the Thunder team, and I do think we'll see some, like, I think Chet will come back with a little bit more of a mean streak next year and some offensive improvement. J-Dub certainly can't have much worse of a season than he did last year because of the health curse. Shai, I think, is going to come back with an improved, diverse attack offensively. I do think OKC can get better. I think that San Antonio is going to experience dramatic internal improvement, and that's just really, really difficult to contend with. And I keep coming back to this, Adam. I think what makes San Antonio the safest bet to win the title this year is a very simple thing, and that is it is just hard to beat them 4 times out of 7 with how good their defense is. And again, I know the Knicks got them, but even in every single one of those games, they trailed big at various points. So, like, I actually landed on San Antonio number one pretty easily for me. As far as the Knicks go,
well, hold on, stay on the Spurs for a second. I want to go one by one here just with the Spurs because there's enough to pull on. So one, when we're talking about marginal improvement or whatever, I don't think Wemby has marginal improvement. I think he has a lot of improvement because we saw it over the course of the season.
Agreed.
His baseline defensive level is already best in the league. He had a case for best player in the world this year because of his all-around impact. And I do think that his offensive game is like coming into focus a little bit more. And it has as much to do with the Spurs figuring out who they are as much as it does him figuring it out. I think his individual offensive game is going to have marginal improvement. Like, that's going to be a process. But I think the Spurs learning exactly what it is they need, where to put him and how to use him is big. But the big one for me is Dylan Harper. This is a rookie. Yeah. You talk about one of the biggest leaps you see is often the rookie to second-year player. He has the attitude and mindset of a player that I just expect to explode in this upcoming season. I'm predicting him to be a guy that makes a big leap this year. And Stephon Castle's another guy that only is going to get better. And then talk about Tobias Harris, which is I think a very good depth piece for them. Like, he's a really good player. You can make the case he was the second best Pistons player in the playoff run for them, and that was a very good team. And now he's just one of the guys. So for me, I look at that team and I think the Spurs were great this year. They could have won it. They came up short. But they are going to be meaningfully better, in my opinion, next season. And that's why I think last year was if they win, it's early and it starts the clock early. They got as close as I think reasonably they can. Next year, to me, is the year where I'm like, they have everything they need to dominate and to be a juggernaut come playoff time.
Yeah, and I think an important detail here, too, is it usually requires loss and pain and shame to reach that like next level. And like they straight up choked in the finals, Adam. Like, I mean, they straight up choked. So like there's a certain amount of, I think you're just going to get a very motivated Spurs group too. Like, again, I thought that was an easy number one. Another note with OKC before we move on from them, I do think it's worth mentioning, even though I do think we'll see some internal improvement from guys like Chet, from guys like J-Dub and Shai. They did lose some depth this offseason, and I think that is just something that it just adds a tiny bit more cumulative wear and tear on the team over the course of the regular season. And I do think also that their offseason acquisitions are more or less irrelevant for the short term. I think they're going to basically have the same rotation minus Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins going into this season. I don't think we're going to see too much of a shift there. So like that 1-2 kind of came out pretty simple for me.
I think you're right about the Knicks. The reason I have the Knicks above OKC in mine is because we're calling this contender tiers and not necessarily, this is semantics, not necessarily who's the better team, which I would say Oklahoma City. But Oklahoma City is going to have to go through the West and through San Antonio. And so I gave the Knicks the bump there. And then I think the Mitch Robinson piece is really big, but they did win without him, including in the playoffs this year, not all the way. I agree with you that it's a downgrade, getting Drummond and maybe they get something from Diawara this upcoming season that gets them excited. They do seem like on paper a worse team, but to me the Knicks didn't win this because of on paper talent. They won this because they are the team that figured out their identity, solidified it, and then just became the best version of themselves, a connected team. And it's hard to do that 2 years in a row. There have been some very connected teams to win over the last 4 or 5 years that the championship defense did not go that way for that reason. They didn't have the same magic in the follow-up year. And maybe, I think, honestly, the most likely thing is that is true. But I just give everybody the nod and say, hey, they did it once. I'm going to give them the nod that they can do it again. And if that happens, even if they're marginally worse, they went 16-3. Wasn't it 16-3? Wasn't that their record? Yeah, they lost 3.
Yeah.
They went 16-3. So if they can get to that level of connection again, I still put them as the team to beat in the East.
So I had New York 3 as well. I do have a little bit of a tier break here. I'm calling this the second tier. The thing with New York is, ironically, what had me put the Knicks over everybody else from this point forward on the list wasn't their talent. It was that I know what they are. Like I similarly viewed last year's Knicks team as a second tier contender, and that clearly showed in the regular season sample. They just were not a dominant regular season team. And again, to their credit, it took care of business in a spectacular way in the postseason. But I also thought that they got some favorable matchups. And even long before the Knicks even got to their, second, third round butt kickings of Cleveland, when they got into the Eastern Conference playoffs, even before then, I was like, if they can get the Spurs, I think they can beat the Spurs. I thought that was a matchup that kind of lined up well for them. But when I look down the rest of the list and you start to go to these teams, like, do I think Boston could actually get a great deal of fit with Paul George and make a trade? Sure. Do I think if Miami gets LeBron that they could get higher on this list? Sure. Do I think if Cleveland could get LeBron, they could move higher on this list? Sure. Do I think Philly, if they could get LeBron? Like there's a lot of like these different things, but they're all question marks for me. And so when I look at, like, when you go down the rest of this list, it's a lot of like what ifs, even for teams like Detroit. Like, what if they make a deal at some point to improve their secondary ball handling? But it's all like a what if. The Knicks are a known commodity in this league. Yeah. Everybody knows what it's going to be like if you run into New York in a 7-game series in the second round or the third round. It's going to be it's going to have to be wins in MSG. It's going to have to be dealing with Jalen Brunson in crunch time. It's OG Anunoby never missing an open shot, making all these huge defensive plays. And it's just, they are a known commodity. And I think that actually benefits them in a realm full of kind of uncertainty elsewhere in the conference.
I think there's a lot to that. The key is, it's so funny, man, because if we were doing this show exactly last year, we were saying we know we're going to get the Knicks in the playoffs, it meant something different.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what's so fun. I tell people this all the time during the regular season when there's an up-and-coming team, and they're like, why aren't you giving the respect? And I always say, look, man, it's just the way it works. People want to know if you can do it. And once you do it once, everyone gives you the respect then for years. They say, oh, well, Denver, we know what they can do. Even though they haven't done it for 3 years, it's still how people talk about them. Oklahoma City, though, so if we move on to them now, they were third for me, second for you. And again, I think it's just semantical difference about it. I don't know if they lost anything that they're going to miss. Mm-hmm. They are going to get back, in theory, J-Dub, to full strength, you would think. A.J. Mitchell, Jared McCain now gets to play another season with them. There is a case that they can be better, but yet I still feel like they have to change. And I know we're talking about the Shai piece of this later, but that's what's interesting is, does Oklahoma City have to change their identity at all? Or is it just one of those things where stay who you are and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some?
I think that it made sense under the circumstances to essentially run it back, because what happened last year was such a unique set of circumstances, and I don't think bailing on your formula makes a ton of sense. That said, I do believe that one of the biggest differences between Shai attacking the Spurs defense and the Knicks attacking the Spurs defense was spacing. And just the simple fact that Jalen Brunson had a lot more Brunson, to his credit, had more variety in his game too. But I think that there was a certain amount of they were able to pull Wemby out into these weird situations where it was difficult for him to decide whether or not to commit to the rim or to stay on the perimeter. And it created a lot of easier looks for the Knicks that the Thunder didn't get. I think if the Thunder lose this year, they need to consider radical changes, radical changes, because there is, to a certain extent, OKC tries to win by dragging you into the mud and then crossing their fingers that Shai's going to hit a bunch of tough mid-range jump shots, which won them a title.
And he does consistently. It's not like we need him to get hot beyond. It's like, no, we just need him to not have bad games, play his average, and that's how good he is.
And he did have some bad games against San Antonio, which is worth mentioning here as the matchup goes. And if they lose to San Antonio again, especially, it's something you got to consider. But I look at it as if you really dig in, they lose to they beat Denver, but Denver has the injuries the injury to Aaron Gordon, and one or two open corner threes for Jamal Murray go in game 4 or 5. I can't even remember which game it was. Maybe Denver ends up winning that series. Indiana, same thing. Before the Tyrese Achilles injury, Indiana's in a groove, hitting shots, has a lead on the road in game 7, and then they lose in the conference finals against the Spurs. So I would not be so married to their current team construct as to think that it is this indomitable force that requires injury to beat. No, you got a trophy, but you haven't exactly been anywhere near as dominant as your regular season team has been when you get to the postseason. So I understand running it back. I do think they win the title last year if they stay healthy, so it's worth it. But I think if they end up losing again in the Western Conference playoffs this year, I think they have to seriously consider, how do we tilt this a little away from just defensive talent and more to we need more two-way talent and high-level offensive players that can create space for our transcendently great star.
The other thing I'm thinking about and it's along the lines of what you just said, is they have been able, one of the most impressive things about Oklahoma City is with how deep they are, they're still able to bring along their rookies and their end of bench guys. They play a 15-man rotation throughout the course of a season. And I'm watching Ade Mara and Ben Sturtz, and I'm sitting here thinking, I like Sturtz. Mara, I didn't love what I saw in Summer League, but they are players that I'm not sure how they crack into this. Now, I count that organization's going to find a way. I'm just saying it feels a little bit less plug and play than what they had before, in part because Ade Mara can't guard on the perimeter at this moment. He's going to have to get stronger, offensively, stylistically. He's such a different player for them. I mean, they had a little bit of this with Jay Will, where you would play through him and they could play off of him. But I think Ade Mara is almost more dependent on you have to give him the ball for him to be effective on offense. So I am wondering if this is the year where Sturtz and Mara don't play Sorber, you have Topic. If all of a sudden those guys just don't play as much as we have been seeing AJ Mitchell and some of the other rookies year after year. And it's just a question I have, because that's one of their superpowers, is they could go to those guys. And I wonder if this year they feel a little bit more like they have to play their main guys more in the regular season.
I think so. I do think one of the interesting kind of pivot points of the season from the rotation with Daigneault in this specific debate about spacing will be if he does end up playing guys like Jared McCain and Bennett Sturtz more minutes. That'll be a sign that he thinks I need more ball handling and shooting on the floor. I do think that that's worth keeping an eye on. Right. But yeah, I do think that in the short term, though, I think he's going to double down on what made them great in recent seasons.
So here's where it gets interesting. And by the way, just let us know in the chat. I think most people will have these three teams in 1, 2, 3 in some order. If you're watching live, let us know in the chat, because I am curious what order people have those three, or maybe it's a different three. But after this is chaos, man. After this, I feel like
complete chaos.
And I got bold just because it's July. Let's just get a little bit crazy. But who do you have as the fourth team?
So I'm 100% with you. I could have gone 100 different directions with this next chunk of the list. For the record, this 4 spot, I have it marked in my notes. this is the spot that I think the team that gets LeBron rises to.
You might be right about that. Yeah.
Like if Miami gets LeBron, I'm putting them right up here, in that conversation. If Philly gets LeBron, if Cleveland gets LeBron, I don't even like Cleveland. And I think if they get LeBron, they become this spot. And then certainly if the Golden State, it just pens the other trades. Like they would have to make other trades, but they do have their picks. Which, by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
This is in Denver too.
Denver and Minnesota to me are number one if they get him. It's not going to happen. So it's kind of silly.
We don't need to get into a whole tangent on this, but I continue to what I keep thinking about with LeBron with Denver is he has played with teams that can't space from the center position ever since he left Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like whether it was Anthony Davis or it was Jackson Hayes and DeAndre Ayton or whatever was filling in for Anthony Davis when he was hurt. LeBron has been contending with rim protection nonstop, and yet he has still been one of the most efficient and high-volume rim finishers in the league. I just imagine with Jokic pulling centers away, LeBron just feasting at the rim. Imagine the dual power forward thing. I think it would be such a wonderful fit, and I can't believe it's not being considered more from him.
I know. It's just not going to happen. Same with Minnesota, by the way, which I have to give them credit. He would be phenomenal there, too. I think both of those teams I would have number one if they were to win the LeBron sweepstakes. It just feels like they were a token. Just nice to be mentioned.
Exactly. So the Golden State piece of it, meaning like if LeBron would go there, they have the pieces to make other moves.
Yeah.
Setting LeBron aside, since we don't know where he's going to go, this is why I ended up going with Boston at number 4. You
can make a case
because they have an extremely strong regular season foundation in the sense that Paul George, say what you want about him, he's actually going to be a wonderful fit in Boston's system.
I agree.
And do I think their playoff ceiling is as high as it would have been if they would have kept Jaylen Brown? No, because I think Jaylen Brown is an underrated playoff player. But they have a boatload of draft picks available. They have a couple of different ways that they could structure salary trades. Like they could target less expensive players with someone like a Sam Hauser salary. They could target a max level player with someone like Paul George's salary. They can target a middle salary with someone like Derek White in attaching picks, and they can make a big move. So Boston has the combination of like regular season stability and the ability to make a big move that kind of vaults them into another conversation. And again, I'm not the biggest Mitchell Robinson fan, but I do think he's a massive upgrade over their current backup options behind Nimi Keita.
And he's just a big body, which in the playoffs you can sink because you just didn't have a big enough body, which is what happened to him this year. So he checks a box that was unchecked in the playoffs last year. But I'm with you. The regular season formula thing to me is huge, and they just know how to like get games. I think their analytics ball, they're spread out, dribble drive, lots of threes. It's a formula for regular season success, and if things hit right, playoff success. Contender, they're in the same tier of all these other teams, which is if you're asking me, do you think they're going to win it next year? I'd say no, I don't. But you have to have somebody penciled in there and somebody that can make this sort of leap. And I actually love that you went bold. I had them number 7. Okay. But I'll be honest, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to me are all like they're just tied. All right, go to your next one because I don't want to share mine until it gets there because it's a bit of a surprise.
Okay, all right. Well, now I'm excited. Number 5, I have Miami.
Wow, not me.
Even if they don't get LeBron, I just think they have such a strong defensive foundation, and then the combination of just dealing with Giannis and Bam in a playoff series. I think they are set up too for backup plans off of the LeBron thing. Like if they get LeBron, obviously that's a huge boost to them offensively, but they are going to have the line of all of these like inexpensive combo guards because of the ball handling responsibility that's available, because their best perimeter players right now are Davion Mitchell and Tim Hardaway Jr. So, like, there's a good chance that you could see a DeMar DeRozan going there. There's a good chance you could see, I know Russell Westbrook's name has been floated around.
He'd actually maybe be good there. The spacing is a concern, but just in terms of, like, physical pressure on the paint.
It'd be a double down on what they do. You know what I mean? Like, their spacing is going to be crap anyway, so why not just have 7 people banging on the door, so to speak? But like I went with Miami here because I think that they just have a strong defensive foundation and a roster that's built for playoff success. But I want to be 100% clear. I agree with you. Like, you could argue anybody in this 4 through 8 range could be listed in a variety of different ways.
Yeah. Miami I is lower on. I had them, I think, what do I have them, 9th here? And I do feel bad about having them this low. The problem is, to me, they do feel like an incomplete team. They feel like a team that I think next year is going to be the title favorites. It might take 2 years to build this. The one thing I'll say is the regular season could get tough on them because they're the opposite of Boston. I think it'll be hard to manufacture wins. But the playoffs, I do think there's something to the playoffs. You have to score on teams. Teams have to get stops. You have to score on the other team. Yeah. And I think that's going to be very easy for them to get stops in a playoffs. And that's before you finish out this roster. So it's almost like regular season will have them lower. They will take a bump in the playoffs, as they always do. Miami always levels up come playoff time. But I still think that this is a team that I'm not quite sure I believe that they can like get the points needed to beat the best teams as currently constructed.
I'm super excited to see what Eric Spoelstra's offensive system looks like with these guys, because he has literally been it's like one of those weird chef shows where they lay out a bunch of weird ingredients and you're supposed to make something like, yeah, exactly. But he's like, if there was a guy that I think could figure it out, it would be a guy like him. I'll be really curious. I think you're going to see an insane like transition based attack. I definitely think they're going to be a big defense to transition team.
Yep, I agree with you.
Number 6 for me is Philly.
Wow, I love how different we are. This is so good.
This is purely a talent. This is purely a talent piece of this. I think the fit is super clunky with Philly, and I think we'll actually talk more about this later when we talk about like players making adjustments. So I won't get into too much detail here with Jaylen Brown. But the truth of the matter is Jaylen Brown is an on-an-island player. His best traits when he was with Boston were on-ball defense, and then on the offensive end, working from the elbows in one-on-ones while everyone else stood around and watched. And he did legitimately get a lot better at that specific skill, scoring there and playmaking out of the middle of the floor. But he does, and I won't get into too much more detail here, like I said, but he doesn't play well in action with other players. Meaning like 2-man game, 3-man game, and he's not a good spot-up player. And I think that makes it a tricky fit, especially considering you're going to get a lot of Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid pick and roll, which is going to put him into spot-up situations. I think there's a rhythm element that's going to be clunky. This is just a sheer talent play. Like, if it all comes together, they could win the East. But I could also see it going the opposite direction and them going home in the first round.
I had them really low. I'm low on Philly. I might like just take the opposite position because I really don't like the fit. I think of players in the fit as 2 players that are very good players that play off each other well. You give a +1 to them. 2 players that are very good but sort of take away from each other. It's like a -1. There is a world where you can build a Boston-like system where it's just everybody spread out and take your turns driving, and that's how you augment. Even when players don't fit well together, it's like it doesn't matter. We're just playing a bunch of one-on-one ball and passing it if we don't get all the way to the rim. Maybe that's what Nick Nurse puts together there. But the Embiid piece of that, I think, makes it complicated because I don't know if he has a role in that offense outside of being in the corner and spotting up. So I think it is a clunky collection. I don't know if, like, for Jaylen Brown to have a great year, like a career year, Maxey probably has to sacrifice a lot. And if it's not Maxey, VJ has to sacrifice a lot. One of those guys has to have a down year for the other guy, in my opinion, to have a really high year. And then the Embiid piece. So for me, I'm just a little bit lower. And then the biggest thing is to win a championship, you're talking about 4 rounds of health. And I just don't see that from Embiid at all. So really you have to say, okay, you'd get Embiid for a portion of a playoff run and then still win a title. I almost count them out because of that.
Yeah, I mean, he was the best player in the first round series against the Celtics and then immediately broke down again. For the record, I don't think LeBron's going to Philly. But Cowherd said this on our show that we did on Sunday, and I thought it was an interesting point, which I agree with, is like they're a team that could weirdly benefit from him because, like, especially managing that personality dynamic of like Jaylen and Tyrese and Joel, I think they could use like a veteran champ that could get in their faces and be like, we got to do this together. Like, we can't do this separately. We got this your turn, my turn crap isn't going to work. We got to figure out how to play together. I think Philly could really benefit from that type of veteran presence. I don't think LeBron's going there, but the point is that dynamic is exactly why I'm similarly low on them relative to like the talent. But I do think there's an undeniable amount of talent there.
Let's go kind of quick. So for record, I had them 10th, which is really low. Let's kind of go through these next ones a little quicker.
Okay, so last one in the second tier for me, Denver at 7. It's just continuity play. I actually do think it was smart for them to more or less run it back. They're the big bad wolf for them in Minnesota has been completely removed, and I'm sure we'll talk about them in a minute. And then,
well, hold on, just on Denver real quick. I have them 5th, and I know. Look, this is a homer take. You guys can call me a homer. It's a homer take. I don't care. It's July. I'm gonna give the homer take. The argument for them is they won 54 games last year, and Aaron Gordon played 30 of 82. Yeah. Jokic missed more games than he ever has, roughly 20 games, and then was hurt for the back half of the year. He's hurt for 30 games. That team, when they were healthy, was a juggernaut. And you could make the same case I just said with Embiid, which is that what are we really counting on Aaron Gordon to be healthy for 4 rounds? To me, that's the biggest critique. But I still go back to the fact that, yes, one, Minnesota is a team that was built to beat Denver specifically. And even then, Denver kind of killed them in game 1 before the wheels came off from a physical standpoint. People will talk about their defense. I say Aaron Gordon's their best defense. He was out, or he was trying to play through this hobbled injury, but he's clearly ineffective. Peyton Watson was out. Christian Brown tore ligaments in his foot and just tried to play through it. Spencer Jones was out leading. Their 4 best defenders were all out or hobbled in that playoff series. And so I don't think they're a good defensive team, but I also think we saw them without their defensive players in the playoffs. And so, again, there's a reason they're 5 and not higher for me. I'm not buying them to win a title. The same as I said for the teams that were slightly above this. I'm not buying them to win a title. But I do think that the market has overcorrected on Denver to they're absolutely cooked. And I'm like, they're just not quite as good as they were. But they're still a 54, 55 win team if they can be healthy, if they have health luck throughout the year.
I totally agree. I think they're Knicks West. I think they're the team that, if things break right, they have the continuity and enough talent to get it done. I think either through retaining Peyton Watson or if they could pull off a sign and trade and get an asset back that they could then use to improve the roster elsewhere, they could make a slight pivot. But I like teams too that have championship pedigree, but that have recently been embarrassed the way that they were, because I think it could go a long way towards galvanizing them.
The other thing that's funny about the way people think about Denver, they lost because of their offense. Everyone's like, that defense is so terrible. Minnesota, 105 points, 119, 113, 112, 113, 110. The offensive rating was 106, 107, something like that. They were lost because their offense got shut down and they didn't have ball handlers, which, by the way, they haven't really addressed. But their defense, not good. It wasn't I think there's an overcorrection to some of their defensive stuff, but I get it. The narrative rules, and that's kind of the narrative for them. All right, what's next?
Number 8, I have Detroit. I do like the small moves they've made. I think Isaiah Joe is going to help them quite a bit. John Collins was actually my favorite power forward out of the power forward free agent market. I just think he brings a good combination of corner shooting, vertical spacing, and rebounding, which I think can lack with some of those other power forwards. So I like the small moves they made, and I like that they didn't jump on Tyler Hero. I want them to wait for someone better. I think that someone better is going to materialize at some point this season, and I think Detroit's going to throw the kitchen sink at them. So I like them here as a team that has a strong foundation and I think is poised to make that move to put them higher on this list.
I think the thing with him is the Duren piece of this. The reports now are he just really wants out of Detroit, and sometimes that's the risk you have with restricted free agents. Is they get to a point where they're so offended that they no longer can even imagine coming back and playing for you. I think it's insane for Duren to be there. I think he needs to take a deep breath and say, hey, look, you wanted the max. It's probably not coming for you. What can you do to move forward and have a great career? You're young enough that this isn't your last contract. So assuming that gets smoothed out, I actually kind of like their team, and I'm surprised how many people are lower on their team than I am. And, you mentioned this with Boston. They do have flexibility to make an in-season move, which I think they're another candidate for that. They didn't really do it this year. I think that might teach them the lesson that if they are a top 2-3 seed and things are coming together, but they desperately need this or that, at the deadline, you just got to do it, man. You got to pull the trigger and become that team. So I like Detroit.
They got to do it this year.
I had them 8th as well, just a different order of teams right above them.
Number 9, the Lakers. It's just a Luka thing. I actually don't really like the Lakers offseason very much, and we don't have to get into that now because I'm kind of frustrated. I think all I can think about is the March team that was kicking everybody's butt, but instead of DeAndre Ayton having Walker Kessler, and I just think that team is a legitimate championship contender, and instead they're we don't want the LeBron and we don't want the vets. And I still think the entire reason LeBron's not a Laker right now is because the Lakers didn't want him. If you've done any digging around the Lakers, it's abundantly clear they were ready to be out of the LeBron business, which is just crazy to me. But that's a conversation for another day. Regardless of how frustrating their offseason was, Just simply put, they have a top 3 or 4 player in the NBA, and they have a good secondary ball handler, a rim protector. I don't love the supporting cast around them, but it's enough to at least put them on this list for me because of Luka.
They're not on my board. I don't love I'm with you on a Luka piece of this. To me, as more regular season, like he's going to carry you to a lot of regular season wins. Mm-hmm. I still think that their team is going to have too many vulnerabilities come playoff time for me to like take them too seriously. And they don't. And unlike the teams we just said, I don't think they have the flexibility to improve themselves, even on the margins. It might even be a thing like there's a good team in here. We just need a little more rebounding. I think even that is going to be hard to address given their roster construction. So that's why they were off the board. And on top of that, like I said, man. Adam Silver wants parity, cutting this to 10. There's a lot of teams that have a case for being at this back portion of it. I just left them out personally.
10, I went Cleveland, and I do not like this Cleveland team very much, but there's two reasons why I continue to keep them here. One, as much as I'm not a big Donovan Mitchell fan, and I do not agree with the extension they offered him, I think they should have traded him. I think Donovan had a brutally bad playoff run that will lead him to have a bounce back season. And then 2, I still think Evan Mobley is on an upward trajectory and will continue to improve. And they have a strong enough foundation, and there will be a little bit of continuity. So even though I don't necessarily like that Cleveland team, I have them at 10.
This is your Mobley is your Clippers. This is how I was with the Clippers for all the Kawhis. They keep losing, and I'd be like, yeah, but this year's different. And I love Mobley too. I kind of pencil him in to be the guy that he is. They were 11 for me, so they just missed. They're the honorable mention team. I have Raptors 4. And I don't care. I want to be bold on this. What I said in July, I'm going to be bold. I assume they're getting Kawhi Leonard. I think they were a sneaky great team and a great playoff team last year. They just didn't have, Ingram wasn't the guy, and they kind of needed the guy. Kawhi is the guy. And I think stylistically, there's almost no change. You just plug him into what he was doing, and he's just way better player at every aspect of the game. That's a huge upgrade. I think they have a great coach. I think they have a great culture. And so they're a team that I actually think, again, just regular season, I think they're going to get some wins. And then come playoff time, they're going to have the versatility to cause a lot of problems for teams. So I had them 4. I went Nuggets 5. The Timberwolves.
Wait, really quick, I fully agree with you about Toronto. And if I was including Kawhi, they would have been at number 4 for me. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I thought they were a very impressive first-round team.
Underrated, honestly,
Kawhi
what they did.
Literally addresses all of their weaknesses.
I agree.
The Kawhi, Scotty Barnes, Colin Murray, Boyles front line is going to be hell to deal with in a postseason with their ability to switch actions. I'm 100% with you. I think Toronto is like a legitimate threat to win the title if Kawhi is there.
And I see Bootzilla saying a great playoff team they lost in the first round. What I mean is great relative to like the talent they had, and that's what I mean is they were better than you would have thought given just the on paper construct, because I think they check a lot of playoff boxes. They weren't very talented, but they needed a Kawhi. They needed the guy. And I think that Kawhi is great when all the other pieces are in place. He comes in and can complete
Ingram no-showed the series. Ingram literally he played terrible, and then he left the series with an injury, and you're replacing that with Kawhi freaking Leonard. And internal improvement for one of the rising stars in the league, and Scotty, Colin, and Emmanuel Quickley was hurt last year. I'm wholeheartedly with you on this one.
I think my team number 6. So then I had Nuggets, and the only team I had different from you in the top 10 was I have the Timberwolves, and I just feel like you're either pro Timberwolves or anti Timberwolves. I don't. I could easily make the case against this as I can for it, because it does have disaster potential. But I do think that the offense is going to be very dynamic. They have a lot of height on the perimeter now, and just athleticism. They're going to play fast. I think they're going to be tough. They did lose a lot of their size, which is going to be interesting to see how that affects them. My hunch is they are a better regular season team, slightly worse playoff team. But you have 82 games to figure out an identity that makes you a better playoff team. So I'm buying them because I think their upside swing is high, even if their floor is low.
I'll save the upside piece for when we talk about LaMelo in the next segment.
Perfect.
But the short version for why I was lower on them is their entire front court rotation now hinges on an older, aging Rudy Gobert. And a big part of what I loved about that team was their front court depth and just how physical they were. And so even though I love a lot of the other bones of this team, and I do think the LaMelo thing will help them on offense, I just think you're a Rudy Gobert injury away from being a play-in team.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I do want to talk about those stylistic changes, and there's so many of them. Ja Morant, Giannis, possibly Kawhi, LaMelo, Jaylen Brown. How much do the teams have to change to fit those guys? How much do those guys have to fit or change to fit their team? We'll debate that on the other side. What did you have when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? How about now? Are you thinking about starting your own business or side hustle? Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. Shopify has you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email, social media marketing, and more. And they also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into... With Shopify on your side, sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. It's summer season, and we all know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away. Well, I've been there too, but I've got Shady Rays. They've changed the game. They're sunglasses that are made for real life. They're seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And the wild part is, if you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trips, just replacements. So you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on a boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use the code ALLCITY, all one word, ALLCITY, for 50% off. What a great deal. 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. All right, back here on the All NBA show, me and Jason Timpf. Make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss it. We do have this one and one tomorrow. Then we're going to take a couple-month break. But you want to make sure you're subscribed because we're doing this with Tim Legler all next year. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, let's talk about these stylistic changes, though. And I actually am going to start in a weird place, and that's with SGA. He had comments this last year about how he wants to learn from what Jalen Brunson did, which is to become a little bit more off ball. We mentioned Oklahoma City and if they need a radical change if they were to lose again. But I do wonder if this next year we see, like Shai has won his MVP. You know, like he's already done those things. And sometimes players, they check a box and it's like, all right, now I just want to win. I only want to win. I do wonder if OKC makes a stylistic choice. And if Shai in particular, not an MVP candidate next year, reduces his numbers, but at the benefit of come playoff time, we're going to have more ways to beat you than just put it all on my shoulders and spread the floor.
Yeah, I think the variety piece of this is something that can increase his shot quality. And that really is the key, right? Like I know he made a bunch of tough shots in Game 7, and it was fun to watch. It was like a cool little playoff moment for Shai that obviously could have been a legendary one if he would have got the win. But I still didn't like the shots he was getting in that Game 7. They were still just like these smothered mid-range looks. Obviously, there is an efficiency math piece to the three-point line. But I also think it goes deeper into just the three-point line's harder to guard. It's just harder to smother three-point shots than it is to smother we're hanging in the lane and waiting for you to pull up from 15 feet. So I think between adding more three-point volume, but also the off-ball piece of this, like I look at like other mid-range assassins. I look at Kevin Durant, for example. Kevin Durant gets 3-4 really good looks from mid-range every game coming off of off-ball action.
Right.
And he just runs into the ball and rises and fires. And I just think in general, like if we're gonna call Shai what he is, which is a scorer in the purest sense of the word, and OKC wants to win by dragging you into the mud with their defense, and Shai just scores enough to push them over the top. We just need to find ways to increase his shot quality a little bit throughout these games because he has consistently tanked in his true shooting percentage when he gets to the postseason. And so that would be more threes, cleaner looks in off-ball action, finding ways to attack in different ways so the team can't just continue to load up the exact same way every single time. I think the name of the game is variety for him moving forward.
I'm curious about this one because I agree with you, and it's less about, you know, when it sounds like you got to take the ball out of his hands because he's not good enough. And I just don't think that's it. You take the ball out of his hands to build something else. It's like you have a great uppercut, but you got to get a left jab in there. And this is the can I now become dominant at another style of basketball so that I can play both? And that the playoffs are a lot about, can we put a team into a corner because now they're easy. We talked about this on our show. You can become predictable if all you can do is one thing. And by game 3, a team is used to the rhythm of that action. Even if it's a great action, you're defending the same thing over and over again. Finding something that's completely different getting him off ball, running him around screens. It's a different rhythm. And now you can go back and forth over the course of a series or even the course of a game. And now it's just harder. There's no one lineup we play because they won one action and this is the one lineup we defend it with. Now at all times you're off balance. And I think it is time for Oklahoma City to explore that. And if that happens, I predict Shai will not have fewer big shots in the playoffs. He'll have the same amount. He just won't have to take as many. He'll still get the ones he wants, and the other ones will go to some other option. Let's go to Trae Young. This is an interesting one. So Trae Young is on a new team, even though he was there last year, didn't play. And I'm watching Debanza, and I'm just like, give that guy the ball. Spread out and let him get downhill. Not because you're going to win this year with that, but just because get your reps in now. Trae Young has talked about, and the Wizards have talked about, I want to do that too. Talk is easy. I don't see it. But do you think Trae Young changes his game at all to fit what the Wizards need to do to develop Debanza?
What I put in my notes is he just needs to make sure that Debanza's ISO game is heavily featured. And that's the point guard's job, right? Like he manages the flow of the game. And I think it's important to understand that like I don't care whether or not Anthony Davis is there, even if it's Alex Sarr, this is going to be a heavy pick and roll team. They're going to run a lot of pick and roll with either AD or Alex Sarr. I think that when you look at the rest of the roster, it's a lot of off-ball scoring talent. Yeah, like I do think that Keyshawn George has some pick and roll chops that I think will be useful as like a backup ball handler. But when you look at the rest of the roster, it's like I prefer Trey Johnson attacking with advantage in off-ball sequences. You know, Bilal Coulibaly is a spot-up player. I want Alex Sarr attacking with advantage out of pick and roll. I want this team needs advantage creation. So like Trae Young is going to have a valuable role, but Debanza is going to need like entire possessions kind of handed, like the keys handed to him. I think he's going to run some pick and roll, but I think Debanza's at his best when he's getting into his high hesitation dribble and just driving at dudes. And so whether it's through action to get him a favorable matchup, or if it's just the reality of the way the matchups line up because you have to put your quicker guards on Trae Young, I think he's going to end up with some bigger players on him, and I think he's going to feast against them in just one-on-ones. And so I think, again, it's just Trae's got to have a big picture mentality towards the team needs my pick-and-roll shot creation, but we also have to develop this kid, and we got to give him the keys to some of these possessions, and it's going to literally require him because he's, again, the guy who's basically running the show.
I'm not counting on Trae to change his game, and I see Rip Van Winkle in the chat says Trae got $200 million to play off ball, LMFAO. I'm not predicting it either, and it is funny, but you could make the case, say that in reverse. They gave him this money so he doesn't have to worry about, I'm only averaging 20 points a game or 18 points a game this year. I don't have to worry about that. I'm on a contract for several years, so I have the ability to say, okay, this year is about this or that. Again, I don't think it's going to work out that way, but you could make the argument. The question I want to ask you, though, is the Debanza one, which is this guy is a monster physically. I wasn't as high on him as everyone else. We talked about this on yesterday's show. But seeing it at Summer League, man, he's just so physically imposing that I think his skill set has a better chance of translating than I thought. But I do think that you just need to give him the ball. What do you think his upside is now? If you just said the future of the Wizards is he has the ball, we spread the court, and he attacks downhill and puts pressure on you. Like, do you think that he has the superstar top 2 or 3 player in the whole league down the road guy, and that giving him the ball and spreading the court is actually a winning formula? Do you see that in his game?
I do, because I think when you're talking about efficiency with scoring, you need one of two things, preferably both, but one of two things. You either need to have a reasonably efficient high volume 3-point shot, right? Like that's a big part. Like Darren Peterson is a safe bet to be a 60+% true shooting guy in the long run because he's going to take 6-7 threes a game and he's going to hit them at 38 to 42%, right? Mm-hmm. Debanza, I don't think ever projects to be that level of 3-point shooter. We'll see. But the second way that you can drive high efficiency is getting to the rim a lot and getting to the foul line a lot. And those are the two things that he does extremely well. And so I think that that gives him a really high floor offensively. The difference between, because like I kind of, if you look at the numbers, Debanza tends more in the Zion, Giannis, LeBron direction of like real high volume basket attackers. He's not quite at that level, but it's not like other wings who have come before him or forwards who have come before him. He is a real relentless basket attacker. And I thought that was what really stood out in Summer League was like teams could not keep him from screaming downhill towards the rim.
And they foul him a lot, which is, I think, something that's going to happen in the NBA. You end up fouling guys a lot when you can't physically match up or keep him in front.
Exactly, and when he applies as much consistent pressure on the rim as he does. Yeah. I think the last piece of it that I'll say that I think is different, when you look at the Zion, Giannis, LeBron kind of trio, they are all brute force. There's not a lot of wiggle in their games. Giannis is just downhill. LeBron's just downhill. Zion's just rip into that left hand over and over again. DeBonza has real wiggle in his game.
Yeah.
He's got really good stop-start quickness. The nastiest move he keeps showing in Summer League is that high hesitation. He just kind of freezes with the ball in his left hand, and then he just goes.
It's kind of Shai Gilgeous. Don't you think it's SGA-like and the stop, change direction? It's kind of herky-jerky.
Absolutely. And then his counters are to the rim. Like, he will take his little turnaround fadeaways, but it's crazy how often he'll drive at a guy, get stopped at 10 feet, and then he's trying to step through to the rim. And it's just, I think that is such a strong foundation. I think he has a long way to go defensively in terms of just his level of care on that end of the floor, but his tools are so insane that I think he'll eventually be good on that end. I just think he projects to be an efficient 28-plus point per game scorer who's a good to great defender, and I think that's an all-NBA player, it's a first or second team all-NBA player.
All right, let's get into some of these guys we've been teasing. Ja Morant, I have no idea what to make of the Portland Trail Blazers, but Ja Morant, maybe they're not trying to win a championship. Maybe this is just we're trying to have a really fun team, but does he have to change his game at all? Do the Blazers and Dame have to change his game? How do you see that going?
I don't know how any of this works because, first of all, just Denny's amazing. And I think putting Ja on the ball at all just relegates Denny to a spot-up role. And if you have Denny with the ball, Ja in spot-up roles is going to be an absolute nightmare because he's never developed as a jump shooter. And frankly, what bothered me is what I liked about Portland is they were big and athletic and switchy. And now it's you're adding in these two tiny guards into the equation. And I just think it fundamentally alters the physical profile of the team.
Totally.
I think the only way this works is if Ja is willing to accept a bench role as a sixth man.
Yeah. Ooh, maybe. I wonder if that's the play. Can Mike and Nori make that happen? That's
Can you
the other
imagine
thing.
That day one of training camp? All right, Ja.
I will say to Ja's credit, man, I'm rooting for Ja because I'm such an easy guy, JT. He had this interview about how he's, grown as a person and all this stuff. And then he talks about how I've been getting out in nature a lot lately. And I'm like, wait a second.
You're I can relate to that.
I'm out in nature a lot. Ja, all right, he's my guy now. I'm totally in on Ja Morant. But I too am with you where I'm just like we were talking about with the Sixers. It's hard for me to envision a world where Ja makes Dame's life easier and Dame makes Denny's life easier and all of that. It does feel a little bit more like you're taking the ball out of one of those guys' hands. And I don't know if any of them, outside of maybe Dame, but he's too comfortable with the ball. They all, I think, are better with the ball in their hand than out. And so there's a sacrifice being made. And that's before we get to the defensive part, which you're talking about, which when I think about what made Portland sneaky good last year, it was athleticism and length and the ability to pressure the ball. And even if you have some of the guys that made that possible last year, you don't have it everywhere, and that's all a team needs. They just have to find out, okay, there's no pressure over here. That's where we're bringing the ball up. That's where our pressure point is. So I too don't see where that's headed. And I don't, can Ja, the real question is, what does a different Ja look like if he's not on ball?
I don't know. I think he is your stereotypical high. Yeah, maybe there's some cutting ability if he becomes a better spot up 3-point shooter. But to your point, I just think there's a diminishing return there. Ja at his best is an on-ball shot creator on a team that already has a guy who's just way better than him at it.
Yeah, I agree. LaMelo Ball.
I think the offense is going to come easy for LaMelo. I have zero concerns there. I think he's going to unlock Rudy as a lob threat in a way that no other ball handler could. The skip passes to Jaden McDaniels in the corner, generating some off-ball opportunities for Ant to attack and score. I just think LaMelo is part of the larger shift away from big physical players that Minnesota had. I just think he's a thin, not very physical player. And I also think that an underrated element of what made Dante DiVincenzo so important is Anthony Edwards is not a great defensive player unless he's guarding ISO against a player that can handle the ball like we know he can. And so having another guard next to him that is a weak defensive player, I think it's going to make them a little bit vulnerable on the perimeter beyond Jaden McDaniels.
I think that there is something to just more ball handling is good, man. I like more entry points into your offense is good. I actually think it's one of the defining traits of this last season that will carry over into the coming years, which is you can't have one entry. Even Denver, as good as they are, it's the Jokic-Murray entry, and then you need to find another entry because if teams will overload on that. LaMelo gives them that opportunity. He gives them another entry. Now Anthony Edwards is off ball. One of my questions, though, is more – how much do you press that button? Is there conflict there? And I'm not saying conflict. The first 10 days, of course, there's conflict with every new team trying to figure it out. But I'm saying, is it always uneasy about, hey, man, does Ant have as many big games now on ball? And if he's really hot, is LaMelo just getting out of the way and letting him slow down? Let me bring it up because I'm feeling it and I'm just scoring every time. That's the rhythm of the team that I think is going to have to figure some things out. But you are right that the defensive part is the huge part here because you're probably slotting Jaden McDaniels into a new spot more than he has played previously. Your point of attack defense now is a little bit different. I do think his length will matter, though. I think there's something, too. He's really tall and really long. And even if you're a bad defender but you have good defenders around you, length all of a sudden becomes even more of a multiplier. And maybe that works. But to me, it's just an identity shift. More than anything, I don't think LaMelo will actually shift his game much. And that's kind of the question here. I think that the team is going to have to adjust their game, and that's the part that I think just TBD.
That's a great point. You've actually caused me to think about this in a different way. Like, what if we all envisioned it, because I know you and I are both big Ant fans. We envision Ant being this like Michael Jordan-esque two-way like scoring guard mixed with like apex defender. But because the team hasn't had a point guard, Ant's had such heavy on-ball responsibility that it's kind of made it so that he hasn't devoted the necessary resources to defense. I wonder if LaMelo coming in and just eating up a ton of usage and creating more easy shots for Ant allows Ant to be a very good defensive player and more devoted defensive player, just simply because I think they would need it. Very simply, just imagine any team with two guards. Imagine an OKC, a San Antonio with Dylan Harper and Steph Castle, De'Aaron Fox, whoever. Ultimately, one of Ant or LaMelo is going to have to guard the second guard on the other team because Jaden's only going to be able to guard one of them. So, I think Ant developing into that type of player is really, to your point, I think Ant's game shifts most with LaMelo coming in more than LaMelo's.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of my big takeaway. And Stuke 1976 has a good point in the chat. He says, Ant is 50% on catch and shoot last year. Ball will help with that this year. And I agree. But here's the question is you are changing who Ant is if he's hunting those. And part of what made Charlotte so dynamic was they had players off ball who were really good at augmenting off ball gravity. It's not just get to the wing and keep your hands up. It's I'm going to run and cut around 3 times before I get to the spot where I catch the ball. And that's what I think if this team works out into its best version as I can envision it. And yes, the defensive part, especially in the playoffs. I don't know if regular season, but in the playoffs, I think you're right that he has even more energy there. But he might be running around more. His mileage per game might be higher because as great as he is as a shooter in the playoffs, how do you get open? You have to make it exhausting to guard you, like Steph, like Konkanippel in some ways, and with the Ant kind of version of that. So I think Ant's the one that I think his game alters the most.
Agreed.
Let's go to Giannis. 2 more, Giannis and Jaylen Brown. Let's go to Giannis next. Is his game changing at all?
I actually don't. I think when he was at his best, not this last season, but the season before, he kind of became this point forward, heavy dose on ball creator. And I just think that's more or less what he's going to be doing. I think the key to taking advantage of the spacing dynamic is Giannis needs to be involved in everything on offense. So he either needs to be heavily on ball with inverted screens, or he needs to be the screener with the guards so that he's always in a scoring threat position that doesn't involve him being a spot up shooter. So really, I think for Giannis, it's going to be a very similar role to what he had in Milwaukee.
Can you play him in the dunker a little bit more with Bam as the screener?
If Bam actually shoots. Well, I mean, Bam post All-Star break last year was 7 3-point attempts per game at 28%. So ultimately it's does Bam make a gigantic leap from a high volume, low efficiency 3-point shooter to a high volume, high efficiency 3-point shooter? Then that changes their fortunes. We don't really have too many examples of that in NBA history of that big of a shooting leap.
I still don't know what to make of Miami. I mean, I'll be honest. Sometimes I just don't have a full take on a team, and I'd rather do that than just kind of BS my way through one I don't really feel. I got to see him play, and we'll go from there. The last one
definitely like him better with LeBron. I'll tell you that much.
Well, of course. Last one is Jaylen Brown, and this is the one where like their question is also just can he alter his game? I'm not sure he's a player that like I think he kind of believes in this is what I do and how I do it. And so then the question becomes, does the team, how do they alter themselves around him? I think this is the one of all the ones we've done. This is the one that might be, outside of maybe Ja Morant, this is the one that I think is toughest for me to wrap my head around. What does it look like if you told me it was very successful?
So I think he has to become better at playing in action with other players. Like even if you dig into the Boston numbers, he was very good in his one-on-ones, like post-ups, ISOs, but his pick and roll efficiency was relatively low. He's the reason why it's important for him to be able to play in action, whether that's Jalen Embiid pick and roll, or it's, Jalen inverted screens with Tyrese Maxey, or him directly screening for Tyrese Maxey. If he can find a way to be an offensive like threat within the flow of playing with the other good players on the team, I just think it gives them a better chance to like be better than the sum of their parts than lesser than the sum of their parts. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece of it is just spotting up. Like he's got to become a player that can like knock down a catch and shoot three and drive a closeout. And right now he's just generally inefficient. He was 45th percentile last year in spot up, so below average. That's just something, especially playing alongside an Embiid Maxey pick and roll, he's going to have to be better at.
This is the one, again, I just think I'm going to swerve on Philly, and Philly fans will definitely let me know about it if they're very good next year, which is possible, but I don't see it, man. I don't love it. Let us know in the comments, by the way, how you think these guys are going to adjust. I'm always curious to hear the feedback. Maybe you give us some insight that, we're going to chew on all summer, so let us know on those players. Let's go quickly, though, here. This is just be quick. League pass climbers, the bottom of the barrel. I'll give you my list, and you can kind of tell me if it matches your order. Number one, I'm telling you right now, this might be a top 3 or 4 league pass team for me next season, and that's the Utah Jazz. I love Darren Peterson. I love all the talent that they have there. I think there's both the on-court, these guys are nice to watch. Keontae George, Ace Bailey, they're fun to watch players, Larry Markkinen. But I think there's also you're going to get to watch in real time a pecking order get established. And that's part of, I think Darren Peterson is their guy. That's their guy going forward. And I'm just curious to watch at what moment in the season does that happen where it's like, all right, Keontae George, we're shifting things to Darren Peterson. Does it happen next year? I think for me, they are the number one team that was at the bottom of the barrel that next year I'm going to be watching a shocking amount of.
They made my list as well. I didn't actually rank this list, but I had them second on it. Utah, for me, was one of my favorite teams to watch last year when they were healthy. And
for the first half.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that Keontae George is very good. I actually do think that that's going to be a harder
100%
for Darren Peterson to climb than people think.
100%.
I will say that I was kind of excited to see Walker Kessler in that mix. So him being out is a little bit interesting. But again, they got Nurkic and Jackson Hayes, so they got some options there. They're just going to be massive. They're going to be
enormous.
Big. Even I think Darren Peterson's going to be a pretty solid NBA defender pretty early in his career. I just think that they are really, really talented and big and physically imposing. And I think they're going to I think there's if you told me you were the Jazz are going to finish with the top 6 seed in the West next year, I would not be surprised. I'm not sure if I'll pick them there yet.
It'd be a fun pick to take though. I mean, it's like one of those ones where you don't even have to fully believe it if you want to just be edgy on it. So Utah was high on my list. I think number 2, and I'm probably overcorrecting. This is one I'll regret a little bit later, but I'm so in on the Chicago Bulls. I already liked Matas, and now you throw in Caleb Wilson, who just looks like a guy that is going to be fun to watch the arc. I don't know if he'll be able to keep up the energy he's playing with right now in Summer League for a whole season. I kind of almost feel like he's approaching this like a playoffs. Like he has something to prove. But that's an athletic team that has some pieces that I'm excited for, and I'll be tuning in more than I did in previous, 5 seasons.
Chicago made my list too. I think that the big thing for me is just Caleb Wilson is in a situation where he's going to get to be aggressive.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier about the efficiency. I don't know how well he'll shoot, but I think he's going to take 5, 6, 7 threes a game. And I think that could lead to like if you told me next year that Caleb Wilson had 7 30-point games, I wouldn't be stunned.
That'd be great, man. It'd be great for it. Next one I have here, Washington. I think most people would have them higher. There's a lot of storylines to this one. I think it'll be a little clunkier in actuality than it feels like. I think that'll be one you get excited for, and some nights you're like, damn, that was not a good game. But nonetheless, there'll be games where it's like, man, you have to go back and watch that Washington game from last night.
They were the top of my list. I just really liked Bonsa, first of all. And then there's enough weirdness. And like, if they do end up bringing Anthony Davis in season, they're just going to have kind of like a lot of good basketball players. To your point, I don't think they're going to win a lot, but I do think they'll be fun to watch.
Next one for me is the Dallas Mavericks, because I like watching Cooper Flagg. I think Morris Johnson's interesting, and they have a new coach. And I know that's a dumb thing to get excited about. Kyrie is back. And presumably with this team, we'll wait to see. That's another team that could be making trades late in the year. But if you told me we're getting Kyrie healthy and on the comeback trail, Cooper Flagg, and then new coach, new players, I'm in. I'm in on that.
Dallas didn't make my list, but I will enjoy watching them. Morez, I thought, showed enough offensive pop to at least be a semi-intriguing pick. I think especially if they get a healthy Derek Lively, and then they end up just being massive, like a Cooper, Morez, Derek front line could be really fun. Also, just Kyrie Irving to me is still one of the most aesthetically appealing basketball players in the league.
Another guy that'll just on any given night could be the most enjoyable viewing experience in the entire league. My last team, I went with the Pacers here. This does feel a little bit like a cheat. And I'll be honest, I think there's a chance that the Pacers, especially with Halliburton trying to come back, that this is more their fun second half of the season league pass team. In the first half, it's a little bit not that. But nonetheless, man, we all remember what it was like 2 seasons ago. They were must-see TV more nights than not. And I hope we get back to that, even with some new characters involved. So I got the Pacers.
So I almost added the Pacers. I didn't end up adding them, but my thought process was I'm just really curious to see if they can recapture some of the magic from that finals run. Like, it just, we keep forgetting they were this close to winning the title, and then they were so bad last year that it like kind of weirdly throws you off in a certain way. So like, yeah, I'm with you. The Pacers to me are just like, I want to just see what they look like. I did have one team that you didn't add.
Only one?
Minnesota.
Well, they're not bottom of the barrel.
I'm not super high on them. They did not make my top 10. The reason why I added them is they didn't make my top 10 in my contenders. But like, I think regardless of whether or not they're good or bad, it's going to be highly entertaining.
That's true.
To watch the experiment of mixing LaMelo Ball in with those guys. Like, I just can see myself being like, oh man, Minnesota's playing tonight. I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, they kind of are cheating here because they were a playoff team. But I get you. To your point, though, it is a completely different team. So, I think it's fair. Let us know that as well. One of the things I like about League Pass teams is, and I even following along in the chat, like I'll say Mavs, and some people are like, Mavs so boring, my least favorite. That's what's great about League Pass teams is everyone has a different thing that they sort of like about
Eye of the beholder.
Yeah, the eye of the beholder when you get down to those bad teams. All right, cue that outro music, Atticus. JT. Such a fun addition, man, this year. We did a show in Vegas together last year, which directly led to this. Just like, we got to keep doing it. And it was a great season talking hoops with you, man. We had a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Adam, you're one of my favorite people to work with, and I sincerely hope we can do this again next season.
I hope so as well. Everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Like I said, tomorrow, Mark Stein. We'll see if there's big news being broke. But if not, there's still a lot to talk about. LeBron James, Jalen Duren, Peyton Watson, and all the other free agency stuff. So there is one more episode coming to you tomorrow before we shut it down for the summer and go our separate ways. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the like button for us. And we'll see you then.
We all silly like the mayor.